By proceeding, you, the viewer, have read and agree to the following disclaimer. Hi, I'm Dr. Jill Krista, and I'm bringing you my series on infection-induced encephalitis. I'm coming to you as a licensed naturopathic doctor and a fellow Pandas Pan mom, and I want to share with you what we've done to foundationally support my kids and my patients through conventional care, before conventional care, and this first webinar series is just covering the foundational support. We're going to be covering the fundamentals, things for the immune system, things for the brain, and then things to prevent, because again, this is infection-induced, so I want to make sure that we are keeping in mind to preventing any other infections that can start the whole immune process and autoimmune process. So for this first section, we'll be talking about fundamentals, and then in the next sections, we'll cover immune, we'll cover brain, and then we'll cover the prevention. So on this first slide, foundational support, I'm going to cover what I've done with my own patients and with my own kids on the fundamentals, the immune system, the brain, and then prevention. Since this is infection-induced encephalitis, you want to make sure that you're working on preventing any new exposures, and there are some nifty things that we can do there. So on the fundamentals, I'm going to read from my slides a little bit to make sure I don't miss anything. We're going to cover schedule, air, water, outside, movement, LOL, and I do mean laugh out loud, and diet. So getting right into it with schedule. What I mean by schedule is these kids thrive on having a very predictable schedule. Wake at the same time every day, try to sleep at the same time every day, and I know what you're thinking because most of these kids have sleep problems. Sure, Dr. Jill, how are we going to do that? Try to avoid the tendency to let them sleep in if they had a rough night. You want to make sure to only vary by that sleep and wake time by an hour if you can. And again, in my next class, I'll offer some things with sleep that you may find helpful to get your kids to sleep. But try to make them get up every morning at the same time, and that will over time reset that sleep-wake cycle that called the circadian rhythm. Do your best. There's no judgment on this. Like I said, I'm experiencing this as a mom and a doc, and we're just doing our best. But the adrenal systems and everything that manages immune and inflammation in the body loves routine. So the more routine that you can be with your schedule, the better. Water, drinking lots of water when they wake up in the morning, and then managing the water throughout the day. And I have seen that spring water takes the long track through the body rather than the short track. It doesn't just drink in and then urinate out. Spring water tends to take the long track and help with dehydration issues. And I've noticed in my patients there are a lot of kids dealing with dehydration. A nice little guide is half the body weight in ounces. Digestive, on that same routine idea, trying to eat at regular times through the day. Our homes are often crazy town, right? Things are chaos. You're managing a kid who is dysregulated, who may be having neuropsych symptoms. The more you can adhere to a tight schedule for sleep, wake, diet, and then potty time, I put that on there to make sure that you're almost regimenting time to go sit on the toilet and try to get those bowels into a habit of when they want to go. Again, a lot of these kids are dehydrated and they're also constipated. So that can help with the routine, and then things can calm down and you can get the bowel movements to pass. Outside time is a necessity, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. And then movement. There's a going thought that if you do purposeful movement like sweeping and exercise where you're using both sides of the body, that you can actually override the obsession or the compulsion to tick. And also what it does is it exercises those other muscles that are not getting used and gives a rest to the muscles that are getting overused with the tics. Okay, moving on to air. What do I mean by air? We can last 30 days without food, a couple days without water, and only a few minutes without oxygen. So what do you think is the most important thing for us to be getting? Air. And now a lot of these kids are having tics that have to do with the diaphragm, and they're dealing on low oxygen all the time. So remember that oxygen is the brain's favorite food. Past that, it's glucose and then ketones and then some other nutrients. But you want to make sure that you're not only helping your child learn how to breathe, and maybe that exercise piece helps them not tick through the breath work, but also moving it around. And oxygen, the best oxygen is ionized oxygen, and that's what you get outdoors. So outdoors is absolutely a necessity. It's also important to get near trees. Trees increase the natural killer cell function, which is a basic immune fighter. I think of it as Rambo. You know, this is like hand-to-hand combat. And forest bathing, there are lots of studies done now on getting outside in nature. It will increase that piece of the immune system, and also increases internal, in the brain, endorphins, and feeds the opiate cycle. So it's a self-soothing, it seems too easy, but it's incredibly powerful. Movement just moves that ionized oxygen up to the brain and also decreases any waste products in the body. It moves lymph, and lymph is how we clean our system. And then silliness. Laughter, laughing out loud, actually does bring more oxygen up to the brain. So in our very stressful, chaotic, sad homes, if you just find any way that your child can find silliness and laughter, it's really important. Don't forget it. So diet, what to eat, what not to eat. What to eat is organic. I'm a big proponent of organic, but I know that we're all budgetary limited because a lot of our services are out of pocket. So focus your organic on meats, dairy products, and things high in fat, nuts, that kind of thing. And then the Environmental Working Group has a website, ewg.org, where they will list their Dirty Dozen and the Clean 13 when it comes to fruits and vegetables. I try not to focus too much on those because if you can get your kid to eat any vegetable, that's a win. So focus the organic dollars, buying dollars, on the meats, fats, and dairy products. Eat a lot of polyphenols. These are the color in your fruits and vegetables. And I would say the best benefit I've seen is families that really focus on the veggies, not the fruit, because a lot of these kids have overgrowth of candida. So focus on vegetables and lots of color. And then green tea, in particular, there are findings where green tea reduces the autoimmunity in the brain. And the EGCGs in the brain can help with restoring glutathione and reducing inflammation. So green tea is a nice one. It also contains theanine, which is a calming agent. It will combat any of the caffeine in the green tea. Adequate protein. A lot of these kids are on restricted diets because of their own restrictions. So any way you can get protein in, and a lot of times it's a texture issue. So rather than almonds, maybe almond butter. Rather than steak, maybe hamburger, where things are already kind of macerated and chewed up. That might help you get more protein in. And then plenty of good fats. You can drizzle olive oil on everything if it's tolerated. And then things like avocado and, again, nuts are a really good source of good fats. What not to eat, food allergens. The body will recognize this as a foreign agent. So it's infection-induced encephalitis. And if the body is seeing itself as a donut, that's the way I think of it, as our skin is the outside of the donut and our gastrointestinal system is the inside. If your child is eating something they're allergic to, the body will perceive that as an infection and it'll start the whole process over again. And in many cases, kids are sensitive to gluten, egg, and dairy. And Dr. Valjani has a lot of interesting information about cross-reactivity of the egg protein with strep. So in our family, we've just taken egg out as much as possible.